Are the Mets going to add another big-name outfielder this offseason? Yes, welcome on in to First Pitch for Monday, January 13th, your source of news, notes, and updates on Major League Baseball. I'm your host, Lindsay Crosby. You can follow me on Twitter at Crosby Baseball. He's Troy Brock, Troy B Baseball on the Twitter machine. And Troy, I want to get to a really interesting article from Bleacher Report about some realistic MLB trades that could happen before spring training. Not a lot of transactions over the weekend to catch up on. Andrew Kittredge goes from St. Louis to Baltimore in a one-year, $10 million deal. Okay, he'll work in the back of the bullpen. Still not enough for Baltimore to actually win the East in 2025. Jeff Hoffman, though, did sign with the Toronto Blue Jays. And this is really interesting because he was drafted by them. He was the 9th overall pick in 2014. They dealt him to the Colorado Rockies, I think like within a year after drafting him in the Troy Tulowitzki deal. And now he's back. 3 years, $33 million. There were some rumors he could be a starter, but they're going to use him as a high leverage reliever. He's probably going to take over as the closer for the departed Jordan Romano. I think Chad Green's his primary competition for that closing job in Toronto. Does this move the needle for Toronto at all in the East, or is they're still destined to be 4th place ahead of the Rays?
I mean, their bullpen got a lot better. Jeff Hoffman's a fantastic reliever. We've seen that over the past 2 years with the Philadelphia Phillies, especially in 2024. But as far as making them any more of a contender in 2025, the answer is still no. Adding a elite reliever at the back of your bullpen does not improve your chances of being a contender when you have so many other areas in which you need improvement. Like you need more consistent starting pitching. You need a more offense around Vladimir Guerrero Jr. and Bo Bichette to stay healthy and be the guy that everybody knows that he can be whenever he's on for a whole season. And just they haven't really done anything to alleviate any of those issues. But I mean, good on them for getting Jeff Hoffman. I personally, I wish that the Phillies would have went a little harder to sign him, especially since the final deal was only 3 years, $33 million. He's making $11 million AAV. Phillies could have afforded that easily and had one of the best bullpens in baseball with the best rotation in baseball. So, but it is what it is. We got Jordan Romano from them, so hopefully that'll work out. But Jeff Hoffman's is a nice piece up there, but no, he's not going to help them be any more than 4th place in the American League East.
I think if anything else, what this deal could maybe do is just wake up the reliever market. Like I kind of agree with you. This isn't a big deal for the Blue Jays, right? Doesn't really change things for them. But the reliever market has been really quiet this offseason. You've seen a couple guys with like sign either earlier multi-year deals, but most of them were mitigating circumstances. Blake Trinan, 2-year deal to return to LA. Yimi Garcia, 2-year deal. I believe he was returning to Toronto. You saw Clay Holmes sign for 3 years, but that was as a starter. Everybody else, Aroldis Chapman, Chris Martin, everybody signed a 1-year deal. This is the first multi-year deal for a reliever who's changing teams and still going to be a reliever. And now you're in a situation where if you are looking for a back end guy, Tanner Scott's it. It's Tanner Scott. To quote Moneyball, there's Tanner Scott, there's 50 feet of crap, and then there's everybody else. If you look at this by WAR from the last 2 seasons, other than Tanner Scott, it's like 40-year-old David Robertson, 37-year-old Kenley Jansen. Like those are the next 2 top options. 35-year-old Danny Colum, 38-year-old Kirby Yates. Like you're getting down pretty quickly into guys who probably will just sign 1-year deals, but your back end guys, it's Tanner Scott and that's it. And if nothing else, Tanner Scott's just going to be that much more expensive now because he is it. If you want a guy that you know for a fact will be your closer in 2025, it's Tanner Scott or hoping one of those old guys can keep it going for another season, like a Jansen in that cutter, like a Kirby Yates, hoping it can work out. So how much did Tanner Scott like seeing this deal? Or do you think since it was only 3 for 33, he got a little bit worried because he was probably wanting something closer to Edwin Diaz or Josh Hader money.
Well, there were rumors out there that the Baltimore Orioles had an agreement in place with Jeff Hoffman for 3 and 39, but the physical kept them had them pull out because of his shoulder injury that Rob Thompson forced him to pitch through, I'm sure. But no, Tanner Scott, he's got to love this deal because I think that if Jeff Hoffman was able to get 3 and 33 and sign the paper at 3 and 33 with the potential for 3 and 39, you got to think that Tanner Scott's going to get at least 3 and 45, if not closer to 3 and 51, even 3 and 60 maybe. But it just the reliever market is really, especially for the those top level back end relievers, they're really starting to get paid a lot, and it's just increasing year over year. And I think Tanner Scott's going to be one of those guys right up there with Aroldis Chapman and Josh Hader and all that with the deal that he's about to get.
Yeah, just definitely. I want to see that get going. There's a couple guys. I'm a Braves guy. There's a couple guys I've identified that I'd love for Atlanta to work on, whether it's bringing back AJ Minter. I've kind of thought that Jose Leclerc, who was the closer for Texas and lost his job last year, kind of think he might be a good reclamation project. Atlanta's in a situation where Raisel Iglesias is a free agent after 25, so they need a new closer. And I think this is a situation, maybe you grab a guy you think you either sign Tanner Scott knowing he'll set up for a year and then be the closer, or you grab a guy like a Jose Leclerc and you try to rehab him to get him back into being the closer for 26. But if you need impact in the back end, there's not a ton of options out there anymore. You can make it work, right? Tons of dudes with velo. Joe Kelly is always out there, things like that. But the proven experience of a closer is going to be hard to find out there for anybody that you would want for more than a year or two, like in Yates or Jansen. There was an interesting article. There's not a lot of free agent news, right? Like Pete Alonso is reportedly given we talked about this. He's reportedly given an offer for like a 3-year deal with player opt-outs to the Mets because both him and Bregman way overplayed their hands in free agency. But there was an interesting article from Bleacher Report from Zach Reimer, the lead MLB writer, came out late last week talking about realistic MLB trades that could happen before spring training. And I think there's like 8 of these in here. And I wanted to kind of pick a couple of these that we either think are good ideas or bad ideas and either compliment them or crap on them and kind of discuss some of this. I'm going to throw you a bone because I like you. You're my friend. You want to talk about the Yankees getting Luis Arraez? You have thoughts on Luis Arraez?
I didn't even know he existed as a player, to be honest. No. Yeah. So
okay. This deal is Luis Arraez to the Yankees. 3 back to back hitting title winner, Luis Arraez to the Yankees. The Padres get right-hand pitchers Marcus Stroman and Will Warren and some cash to help cover Stroman's contract. And supposedly Jeff Passan says the Yankees discussed Arraez with San Diego, but John Heyman reported that the fit's not quite there. What are your thoughts on the idea of Luis Arraez to the Yankees with Marcus Stroman? The main part is going back.
So in sports in general, in all sports, when teams make trades, people like to look at these trades and they like to determine who they think, which team won, which team lost, or did both teams win. It's very rare.
Or did both teams lose?
It's very rare that both teams lose a trade. This would be a trade where both teams would be losing. Because Luis Arraez, in case you have not looked at my Twitter anytime in the past couple of weeks, Luis Arraez
at Troy B. Baseball.
At Troy B. Baseball. He is a singles merchant. His ISO for his career, I don't care how high his batting average is, his career ISO is 0.096. That is god-awful. And he is a singles merchant. He can get all the hits he wants. He doesn't walk. He doesn't strike out. That's fine. All he does is hit singles and some doubles here and there and maybe a triple if the defense forgets that they're playing baseball and wants to go get a hot dog in the concession stand or something. But Luis Arraez is not worth being on a major league team in general that's contending for a World Series, much less the New York Yankees. He can be on a team like, I don't know, the Pittsburgh Pirates or the Cincinnati Reds or something. Or the Marlins, yes.
Yeah.
That would make sense. But somebody that's contending for the World Series, Luis Arraez, is nothing more than a waste of lineup space where you could have somebody that's going to actually do something. As far as Marcus Stroman goes...
Oh, hang on. Before we get to Stroman, let's finish Arraez, because I also have thoughts.
Oh, my bad. Sorry.
Okay, so part of the issue here with Luis Arraez is a lot of the non-hitting single stuff has cratered, right? He led baseball with 200 hits last year, 314 batting average. 2023, it was a 354, right? Yeah. His slugging dropped to a 392. He went from 8 and 10 home runs in 22 and 23 to only 4 home runs. He's not a good base runner. He doesn't draw a ton of walks. He walked 24 times in 672 plate appearances, which is awful. 346 on base is bad. And so he's a guy that he doesn't run well. He's bad defensively. They moved him from second to first, and he's still graded out negatively on defense. So he doesn't run well. He's a bad defender. He doesn't hit for a lot of power. He had 4 homers last year. And again, in 150 games and 672 plate appearances, it's a 392 slug. And so his only value is making contact and hitting singles. Like, that's it. He also, for the first time in a while, struck out more than he walked. Because again, he only walked 24 times. He cut his strikeouts down to 29, but his walks dropped from 50 to 24. And so if he joins the Yankees, he'd be playing second base, where he is literally one of the worst defenders in baseball at second base. We saw what bad defense did to the Yankees last year. He can't DH. You got Stanton. You can't play first. You got Goldschmidt there. So yes, he would get on in front of Aaron Judge, but can he score from first on a double by Judge? We don't even know, because he's so slow. It's just, his value is hitting singles. That is his value. And in the modern game, like, he was worth 1 WAR last year. He had 200 hits and a 314 batting average, and he was worth a grand total of 1 WAR. And if that doesn't tell you how limited his skill set is, nothing will. Okay. So that sucks for the Yankees. Marcus Stroman going to the Padres. Tell us why that would suck.
So not only is he just a bad clubhouse guy, which has been very evident throughout his entire career.
He blocked me on Twitter.
Oh, did he?
Yes, I am blocked by Marcus Stroman on Twitter.
I'm surprised I'm not yet, but I have had like 6 different Twitter accounts in the past 10 years. So it's only a matter of time, but he's just not a good person to begin with. And then other than that, he thinks he's much better than he is. And he barely pitches. He's another guy that's just consistently injured, and when he's not injured, he's mediocre to bad over the last few years. And it's just he thinks he's an ace, and he hasn't been an ace since probably his second year in Toronto. And what was that, more than 5 years ago? And he's
been a minute.
Yeah, and we talked about it before we came on here to record this. He hasn't pitched 140 innings in multiple years. And
he did last year. But in the last 3 years, he's broken 140 innings once.
That's what it was. Yeah.
And the ERA was 4.31 when he did that. And he got a little bit lucky. His field independent pitching was 4.62.
Yeah.
So I got asked a question for the Braves mailbag, which drops at noon today. The Braves Today podcast, if you want that, about acquiring Marcus Stroman to replace Charlie Morton. And like, the value of Charlie Morton, and the Orioles will see this, is he'd make 30 starts and pitch 160 innings every single year, right? Every single one. Marcus Stroman's inning counts the last couple of years: 138.2, 136.2, 154. Is that worth $18.3 million? Not to me, not when he's pitching to a 4.31 ERA. His fastball is 90 miles an hour. That's not worth $18.3 million in modern baseball. He gave up 19 homers in like 29 starts. If you went to a single Yankee, like if you went to 2 Marcus Stroman starts, you saw somebody rock him. if you went to 2 Marcus Stroman starts. ERA plus of 95. It's been dropping every year for the last 4. So he's now below average. And like you said, his perception of him is much better than it actually is. That's a terrible deal. And I'd never want to do that. And obviously you heard the deal was they were also sending money to cover his salary to the Padres as well. We don't know how much is the proposal, but this is a deal of we'll trade your one trick pony for our bag of crap. And let's hope it works out for somebody. That's what this is. I apologize to people who are friends of Marcus Stroman. That was not nice of me, but it's not a great deal for anybody. Like, it's really not. Other deals in this that I wanted to ask you about, I thought were interesting. The Orioles getting Luis Castillo in return for first baseman Ryan Mountcastle. Is it just me, or does it feel like the Mariners are going to want somebody else, right? Somebody who can help address second base or third base or something? Or would they just do a 1-for-1 deal of Mountcastle for Castillo?
No, I think that the Mariners would have to have more than just Ryan Mountcastle for Luis Castillo. I think that this deal should have been done already. The Baltimore Orioles greatly need Luis Castillo in their rotation, and they really need to move on from Ryan Mountcastle so they can have more flexibility.
Kobe Mayo needs to come up. And rake.
And so, yeah, I definitely think that the Mariners would need more than just Ryan Mountcastle in this quote unquote realistic trade that they're projecting here.
Yeah, I could see this being something where you did Mountcastle and another infielder, not one of your major league starters, right? You're not trading Jordan Westburg, Jackson Holiday, but somebody like Ramon Urias. I would say Jorge Mateo, he's recovered from an internal brace surgery, so he's going to be out for a good portion of the year. He didn't have that till August. But like you've got, you have Emmanuel Rivera in your system still, who's on the 40-man roster. You could clear him out. There are guys that you could move. You have a ton of outfielders, right? Like Dylan Beavers, Judd Fabian. You have higher level guys that your studs that you really like in Enrique Bradfield and Vance Honeycutt. So you give. It just feels like, heck, you've got a bunch of outfielders that you aren't really using. Like Heston Kirsten's going to be on your bench, right? I do think he could play first base as well. I think he'd be a good fit there, but you could move him and Mountcastle in a deal. But this one makes a lot of sense. One of these that doesn't make it, or that I hadn't thought of until, I'm a little embarrassed. I hadn't thought of this until now, but the New York Mets getting Luis Robert for infielder Ronnie Mauricio, because center field for the Mets is, you're in a situation where they're going to need a strong defender next to Juan Soto. They traded Theory. Defensively is very, very good. Offensively, he's got all the tools in the world, but he swings at everything. He is like Javi Baez-esque plate discipline. I could see this deal. They take on all of the money that's owed to Lubob. It's if you pick up the club options, it's like $55 million over the next 3 years. And if he bounces back, that's a very formidable lineup all of a sudden, because you've replaced Siri with him, and Siri's now you're starting your backup outfielder. I think it's a good deal.
So I think that this is one that the Mets would probably do, because like you said, they do need a center fielder, and Lubob is a very good defensive center fielder, but he does have the caveat when he is healthy and when he's on the field. And that is where my issue with Lubob comes in, because throughout his career, he debuted in 2020. He played in 56 of the 60 games in 2020. Awesome. Yeah. Good job, Lubob. Yeah. In 2021, he played in 68 games. In 2022, he played in 98 games. In 2023, he did play in 145. And then in 2024, he played exactly 100. So he has essentially been, over the last 5 years, Byron Buxton, but he's a better hitter than Byron Buxton. And I don't know.
Full circle. Full circle back to Byron Buxton. In all fairness, in 23, he was really good. Silver Slugger, all-star, MVP finisher, right? Batted .264 with 38 homers and 20 stolen bases. picked up like 5 WAR. It's just like you said, he hasn't been super healthy. And I do think that the Mets are in a position where, because they have Siri, because they have Tyrone Taylor, they absolutely could live with, when he's healthy, he's in the lineup and he's effective. They can sit Starling Marte for a day, let him DH some if they need to. They feel like a good team that needs to rotate that DH spot around. Instead of a 36-year-old Starling Marte DHing every day, they need to rotate that around. Give Juan Soto a day off his legs. Give Francisco Alvarez a day off his legs. Give Mark Vientos a day off his legs. Brandon Nimmo and Jeff McNeil, I don't know why their games have cratered, but you could give Lubob a day off his legs and let him DH. But I do feel like they're willing to run with Siri every day. So I feel like getting Lubob is the best case scenario as far as when he's healthy, we have a great lineup. And when he's not, we could plug Siri in and just keep on trucking. And if we have money on the IL, oh no, we have money on the IL. We're the Mets. We don't care.
Yeah, no. I agree. Yeah, when he did play essentially a full season in 2023, he was a really good hitter. He finished 12th in MVP voting that year and was an All-Star and a Silver Slugger. And when he is healthy, he is one of the better hitters in baseball. He's got the power. He can hit for a decent average. He's not a crazy with the strikeouts, and he's a Gold Glover. If he could play a full season, he could win a Gold Glove in center field. It's hard to.
Well, in the American League, the National League is jacked.
That's what I was about to say. Yeah, in the National League, it'd be tough, but he has that capability of being a Gold Glover in center field, and that's not something you see from a guy with his build that often. But he's good. It's just the injuries, man. That's what's got me down on him. But no, I did want to ask you about one of these trades, and that is the Braves trading for Pablo Lopez. Adding Pablo Lopez to the rotation, as well as Christian Vasquez, sending Drake Baldwin, the Braves' #1 prospect, Hurston Waldrep, the Braves' #2 prospect, and J.R. Ritchie, the Braves' #6 prospect, to the Twins for those 2 players.
Okay. I am not opposed to trading for Pablo Lopez, right? I talked about this on the Braves podcast, I think December 31st. But this deal is dumb, right? Okay, the thought processes I have here, there's 3 different reasons why I don't like this. Reason number 1, they didn't want to trade Drake Baldwin for Garrett Crochet. And if they're not going to move Drake Baldwin for Garrett Crochet, why would they move Drake Baldwin for Pablo Lopez? It just doesn't make a lot of sense to me. Never mind the fact that if you do that, Christian Vasquez is on the final year of his deal. He's your backup catcher. Great. When he leaves, guess what? Now you don't have Baldwin to plug in behind him. And if Vasquez makes the roster, your current backup catcher, Chadwick Tromp, who is out of options, but a good defender that the pitching staff likes throwing to, you lose him when you try to send him through the minors. So all of a sudden, if you acquire Christian Vasquez, you don't have a 3rd emergency catcher for this year. You don't have a new backup catcher starting in 26. And by taking on the money for both Vasquez and Lopez, you can't reset the CBT this year, which, fine. They've said they're willing to exceed it for the right player. But if you're not going to, if they decided up front to not reset the CBT, they should have just spent to to the 3rd threshold like they did last year. Spend $55 million in the winter. But instead to just hold back all this money in the spending just to barely go over the CBT right as you get into spring training is the dumbest possible way to do it, because you get all the downside of not resetting the CBT, right? Not spending, still having the 50% penalty without the benefits of blowing through the CBT and signing all those cool guys. So it's dumb. I would take Pablo Lopez. I would do this deal if you could sub out Drake Baldwin for somebody else, whether it's Nacho Alvarez, the shortstop, a lower level, an international player who's not Rule 5 eligible for a couple of years, whatever. I'd do that deal in that situation. I just don't see them moving Drake Baldwin in this deal if they wouldn't do it for Garrett Crochet, who arguably is better from a cost perspective and a stuff perspective than Pablo Lopez.
No, yeah, for sure. That would be a massive overpay for Pablo Lopez. A couple of things here on Pablo Lopez from me. One, I didn't realize he was only 28 years old because he looks like he's 45 whenever you look at him.
He
But
he looks like he's been around the league for a long time. He did debut
right.
in like I think at like age 22.
Yeah,
But yeah, he looks like he's been around for a while.
yeah, he
It's the
is.
beard, I think.
Yeah, I think so. It's not like a full beard. It's like the stubble beard.
Yeah, he does turn
But yeah,
29 in March, so he'll be 29 when the
right.
season starts.
Yeah, so he's younger than me, for if anybody was curious. But no, and we've seen all throughout this offseason that, as we've talked about multiple times, that major league players are not generating the return through trades that they normally would, and they're in no way in hell would Pablo Lopez return 3 top 10 prospects anytime, much less right now, whenever the trade market is showing that major league players are not valued as highly as they really should be or have been in the past. Thirdly, before we get out of here,
real quick, the Garrett Crochet deal was 2 organizational top 10 prospects. Like it was Kyle Teal was number 4, Braden Montgomery was in their top 10, and then like Chase Medroth, the infielder, was number 11, and the pitcher was like number 14. So like the equivalent to this would be the 2 pitchers and then a throw-in guy in the back end. And even that's probably an overpay based on what Crochet got.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And Pablo Lopez's career ERA plus is 108. So he's only 8% better than league average across his career. But you did mention Nacho Alvarez. So are we out on Nacho Alvarez now? Is that no longer a thing?
Here's the thing on Nacho Alvarez is defensively, he's really stretched it short. And so other teams will definitely, I think, have more value on Nacho Alvarez than the Braves will, because the Braves prioritize up the middle defense. They traded William Contreras for Sean Murphy because they wanted a good defender, and Contreras was bad behind the plate. Michael Harrison center. Orlando Arce is a good defensive shortstop with no bat. And so, but Vaughn Grissom was good offensively and bad defensively. They traded him away instead of letting him play shortstop. So, Nacho Alvarez's issue is he's a little stretched at short defensively, but he also doesn't have the power that you would need for something like third base. So he can play second. You have, 3 more years of team control of Ozzie Albies? So if you're going to move him, it feels like now is the time to move him before the rest of the league kind of comes to the same realization that defensively he's not going to work at short, or else you're going to have to accept he's going to be a second baseman and a third baseman who can occasionally cover shortstop if there's an injury for a couple of days, but he's not going to be your everyday starter. I think that's kind of where you are with Nacho Alvarez right now.
I got you. Okay, yeah, for sure. And I was going to ask you about second base, especially with all of the injuries that Ozzie Albies has dealt with over the past few years.
It is an odd number year, so you should be fine. The way that this works, Ozzie played 156 games in 2021. He played 64 games in 2022. He played 148 games in 2023. He played 99 games in 2024. The way that his career works, 2025 should be a healthy year for Ozzie Albies. The same thing, Matt Olson is super streaky, but he's a lot better in the odd number years. So everything's coming up Braves for this upcoming season because, Matt Olson's WAR by year, 2021, 5.8, 2022, 3.3, 2023, 7.4, 2024, 3.8. He's going to be somewhere between a 6 and a 7.5 WAR player next year, just based on the trend in his career. So this is a good year to invest in the Braves, folks.
Absolutely. I think I'm going to go ahead and kind of make the executive decision here on Thursday when it's you and I back on the pod recording for Friday's episode. I think we need to go ahead and do the Braves deep dive unless there is some major news that we need to talk about. So unless major news, I think you and I need to do that Braves deep dive on Thursday for Friday's episode.
There you go. Troy and Christian are back tomorrow with another episode of First Pitch. If you have questions for us, let us know. Troy's on Twitter at TroyBBaseball. Christian's on Twitter. I think it's First Pitch MLB. Yeah. I'm not quite sure. Let's let that go. But Troy B Baseball. Send him to Troy. We'll get him on the show tomorrow. And in the meantime, this has been First Pitch.